forms of business ownership, that's something that's really important for you to consider. So there's the general sole proprietorship, which is the doing business as. So you might be named Molly and you might make mixed drinks and you call your business Molly's Mixes or something. So you go down to the county hall and you fill out a form and you do the search. Has anybody done this in the big book? Right, you're standing there like these huge books. It's very, very technologically advanced. So they're like this big. So it was brilliant. John, my business partner, and I were down there, 5 years ago. We started out as an assumed name partnership. We're at the county hall, and we've got this book, and we're looking for another Del Vecchio and Stadler. Shockingly, there was no other Del Vecchio and Stadler in Erie County, so we were all set to go. So that's what you do. You just go there. You can, at this point, you can open up a bank account. You can get a federal employment identification number, and you can keep your finances separate. So that's probably what you should do. You should keep a list of everything that is considered an expense, pay that through the checking account of the DBA, and keep your stuff all separate. And then that makes it easier for accounting and for tax purposes at the end of the year. So that's pretty straightforward. You just go down there. It's $35 for the fee, I think, and maybe another $10 for a certified copy for the bank. So it's fairly straightforward. The downside to it is that it doesn't provide you any protection from liability. So if you have a situation where, like I said, if you're selling cookies or something and the eggs were bad and somebody gets food poisoning and then they come back to you and they decide to file a lawsuit, well, now all of your assets and your personal assets are potentially on the line for being sued. So Kevin's going to come in here in an hour or so, it's a little over an hour, and talk about insurance. And the insurance will protect you in some cases, but if you don't have the right policy or if there's some little loophole that you're not protected, they can come after your personal assets. So we all have collections of Picasso pieces, right? So we don't want people to get a hold of those. So that's where you can go and take the next step and file a legal entity at the state level. So you go to New York State, you say, I want to be an incorporation or I want to be an LLC, and I'm going to my whole purpose is to make a ton of money, and that's what I'd like to do. And they say, okay, here you go. And so now you've kind of created a separate legal entity, right? So you're Susie Smith, the state recognizes you as a person, but the state also recognizes, whatever your company's name is, incorporated or LLC is a separate legal entity. So for the most part, but not in all cases, your liability is separated out. So that's really good news. There's actually, it's interesting, one huge exception is for smaller companies. The intellectual property infringement is actually not separated out as a liability. So you could have an LLC, be accused of trademark infringement, and then be personally on the hook. So the fun part about law is that there's never just one answer, there's always an exception. That's an interesting exception because intellectual property is getting so, a lot of people are enforcing it and it's becoming a really big deal. So if you think you can just form an incorporation and start trademark infringing across the country, you're in for a rude awakening. So